Hey, I'm smiling. I'm feeling a lot better.
Mhm.
You notice it?
When you're smiling.
Yeah. Awesome, someone's here. So yeah, it's been a really tough while. But I'm fine. Actually, I need to put some eardrops in soon for my ears because that's what I had double ear infection. So almost finished that. But yeah, um, so much of a experience of pain, and maybe I can talk about that for a bit because I think um, we can all talk about or think about times when the same things happen to us where we've had um, physical stress and pain from trauma and also from life being compounded, and then the like re-traumatization through triggers, and on top of that also having some form of infection. So a few years ago I had I had two wisdom teeth that needed to get removed, and um, I didn't have the money to do it. Thankfully, I was helped to get that done, which I'm appreciative of, and also the dentist that pulled them when we went into emergency and stayed back after um, just about they were about to shut, and she kept it open and pulled the worst one.
Hmm.
And I'd been going through so much stress that year, like extreme stuff. Like I can't even talk about the
Do you have like an infection in your jaw because of the teeth or
yeah,
something?
yeah, like
Because you had to go to the emergency.
emergency dentist. Like it
Yeah.
was, yeah. So it was like not hospital, but it was like similar. And that there definitely was an infection, and had been there for a while. So when it's another thing that compounds and adds to your body's having to deal with all of this stuff, and then you have that on top of it. And so, you know, um, medical professionals would probably concur with what I'm saying is that, the body's trying to balance and trying to just get by. And so it will put stuff aside to keep going until it gets to a point where you can't go on anymore in that situation. And that happened a few weeks ago with me. So I'd had all these problems, and you remember the stream a few weeks ago where I was saying how, I can't think or have executive dysfunction and all this stuff. That was the stress, the trauma, and the infection. So the ear infection, so that was all combining. And so it got to the point where my brain was shutting down. And so, and this is what happens as an immune response to stress is the body will actually put you in bed, and it'll basically give you flu-like symptoms even without having a flu or an infection, just to, and this can be anxiety can do this as well. It can do, there's lots of things, trauma, stress, anxiety can create these. And so your body's doing this as a natural reaction to protect itself. So it will push on as long as it can until it gets to a point and it says, no, sorry. And so that's what happened to me. And then, so I started not being able to function and think. And that happened for that. You'd be able to attest to that. There was several weeks where I wasn't able to speak properly, and things got worse.
Yeah. It's a
So it was
physiological
frustrating for you.
response.
Yeah.
it was more than just mental and more than just physical. It was an amalgam of both, and it was perfect storm.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Oh
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
Hermit.
Happy Hermit's here. Awesome. So Happy Hermit says, and Happy Hermit can attest to this situation too, because he's explained he developed an autoimmune condition from stress. So he's a dear friend that has gone through this and it's affected him, you know. So I will explain. So Happy Hermit says, can you discuss and define executive dysfunction? Not sure if it is an open session chat, but yeah, absolutely it is. But if so, I'd like feedback from you too tonight. Absolutely. So executive dysfunction is essentially you have the brain and behavior, you have your olfactory, autonomic things like breathing, heart rate, your heart and your breathing. That's your body's just going to keep doing that. And so at the higher level functions, which is generally in the prefrontal cortex, is where this stuff happens. So it's decision making, complex thought, memory retention, attention, attention and focus, all the things that make us be able to function. And so that's, I guess, why they call them executive, because they're the most important things. So there's certain things we can do. We can wake up in the middle of the night asleep still and go to the toilet and go back to sleep without having to really think. Some people even have sleep a sleeping thing where they can wake up and start doing things and still be asleep. So that sort of blurs between that. But yeah, there you go. Happy Homer says, okay, thanks. I just didn't want to jump in.
I think executive dysfunction generally means you can't commit to decisions because of overstimulation. It's like you can't focus on one thing long enough to weigh how you feel about it. It jumps to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing, and then you're too overwhelmed to make a decision at all.
Yep.
So it's about your ability to make a decision and then stand by it.
Yep.
You question everything, and then you end up in this kind of like nexus of indecision.
Yeah. And another thing is like, someone could say, "Oh, what do you want to eat for dinner tonight?" And you're like, you can't even think of what you even want to eat for dinner, and it hurts. It's like there's almost a pain associated with there's like a barrier and a thing with that. And when you have like it can fluctuate between you can be high functioning and then flip to low functioning, which is what you could say dysfunction. So it can be throughout a day. You could start off okay and then it could collapse. So you could have a trigger. You could be all good, everything's working good, something comes along, trigger, can't think at all, and for the rest of the day you're for yeah, I'll get onto reading them in a second. There's a lot of things that there's a lot of it. If it's persistent and constant, it is terrifying. And so some people will just resort to alcohol or cannabis, things like that, just to numb themselves, because if they can't think, they may as well not think, or sometimes it can calm them enough so that they can think. And for some people, pharmaceutical drugs can help, but in a lot of cases, it's not going to help. And other substances aren't necessarily going to help either. They can alleviate for a certain amount of time, but it's not going to address the issue. So working out what the underlying cause is working on that, and at the same time doing healthy things like exercise, good diet, engaging with people and things like that, can help build up that strength to get back to that point. So another example is the inability to read. So when I've had executive dysfunction and I've wanted to read, I'll read a paragraph and then I'll read the paragraph again, or the whole page, and I'll read the whole page 5 times before I go, I can't do this, and I put the book down. So that's an example. So I'll catch up on the chat here.
I feel that though.
What's it?
I feel that though.
Yeah.
I've read the same thing, like the same page over and over and over again, and then it's like I still don't understand what I read. Just give up.
Exactly. So here we, it's you know what it's like, and so it's something that we all experience at times in our life. And stress is a big thing, and certain life events or trauma will actually create a much more of a make it worse. But the good news is that you can overcome executive dysfunction. Now, if you've had a major traumatic brain injury, that will may not get much better, but you can always, through neuroplasticity, through training the brain and strengthening, you can always rebuild and get back those functions. And so if you think of the behavior in the brain, and you can spread it out and think of all the different things that we do. Speaking, a big sign of executive dysfunction is not being able to speak. You go to speak, the words are there, but you can't actually get them out. There's so many different, there's subtleties. But the good news is we can strengthen, we can overcome these things. So I'll get back to, because Happy's got some good comments here. Happy says, okay, thanks. I just didn't want to jump in. And no worries, mate. Like, we're here for you. Speak as much as you want. Here's my deal. The last month, I didn't tell you, but I've been living very basic and minimal for about 2 years to save for a house. The last month, the totality of the stresses, and of the stress in America right now, which, yes, there's a lot of stress there, have had me feeling incredibly ill and nearly bedbound for about a month with flu-like symptoms and diarrhea. Anyhow, there you go. So the body actually does that too. Like, the digestive system is so connected to all of this stuff. So stress will actually change. This is, whenever I talk about this stuff, it's stuff that I've read, which I assume is from reputable sources. But like anything I say, just please learn about and research separately and come to your own conclusions and things about these things. I'm not a medical professional, and hey, medical professionals get it wrong all the time anyway. The way that we learn is through personal experience based on what we've learned from what other people have shared with us. But yes, absolutely. In fact, I had similar thing in the last month. I had diarrhea from the stress. So what happens is your gut biome, the bacteria in your stomach can change in minutes from stress.
Yeah.
Now, you've experienced I've got gastrointestinal reflux, which is healable, and stomach ulcers, but they didn't show up when I had an endoscopy last year. But see, the thing is, I know that they're there, but I know that they're healing as well. Now, I read also in a book about polyvagal theory, where there is nerves with your vagus nerve. I forget the name of the nerve, but it comes down through the main section of the vagus nerve down into the stomach, and it sits there, right in the spot where the stomach meets down into the lower intestines. And then so when it gets disturbed, it gets triggered from trauma and stress. So there are actual methods of specific massage that will actually alleviate, not just massage, stretching, that actually helps correct that particular nerve. That's separate to the gut biome. This is how interconnected our whole autonomic nervous system is. So it will respond. Input, and then it responds and expresses based on what's happening. So I can totally hear what you're saying about being bedridden and having the intestinal issues, and it's like your body is just telling you you're not getting out of bed. Now to hydrate because you've lost all those fluids, and you also know to make sure take vitamins and things like that to replace those things. And it's telling you to slow down. It's amazing how like the body will actually override these things. Same with anxiety, can propagate as a major migraine. And this is what happened to me. I had my ear infection actually got so bad, and I was neglecting it because I was going through all this stress. I was having this amazing, beautiful time with my fiance, right? But also all this stress at the same time. And then she was having to deal with me just falling apart. And it was frustrating for her. And then I was getting frustrated because she was frustrated. It was not nice, was it? No, it was not nice.
Hey, are we playing ping pong? We're just passing the ball back
That's
and
it.
forth.
But it got better.
You got to catch the ball, just hold it still for a second, and then readdress priorities.
It got to the point, exactly. It got to the point where it was like, it wasn't until my migraine and the pain of the stress got me so scared. I was like, I think I need to go to a hospital because this isn't a normal headache, And yeah, Happy, keep writing in the comments. I'll catch up with them in a minute. Keep writing. So the stress propagated as like a really scary headache, and I was frightened. And I remember saying to Dad, and I was saying to you, like, I don't know, I think I need to go to a hospital. I'm scared I'm going to have like an aneurysm or something, or a stroke because of the stress. I was so stressed, and that's what happens. Stress will induce those things. So if you're highly stressed, that's why things like mindfulness or self-care techniques, grounding, calming, resetting the nervous system is so crucial, and learning how to identify when you're in that super highly stressed state to just calm. Simple things just like hydrating is one thing. Making sure you're taking vitamins or something, even if if you have no appetite, still take some vitamins, because it's still going to help your body. And make sure you're getting enough water, because you can't just stop everything. But it got to the point where like I was like scared. I was scared. And so
And once you feel in that frenzied state, you're even scared to feel frenzied, and it builds on itself. So you've just got to let yourself reconnect to yourself, reconnect to what you love, reconnect to your priorities, and just let the other worries fade away as much as you can.
Yep.
Just make sure that you're checking your list. You've got 5 things you need to get done today. Make sure you do those 5 things well.
Yep.
And then eat an ice cream or
balance it. Yeah. You have your core things you need to do, and also, and what like
and depending where you are, you can also just tell people, hey, I've got these things going on in my life. For the next 2 weeks, I've got to solve them, but then I'm back.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make sure that all of my responsibilities are fulfilled completely. But I've got other things on my plate, and then I'm ready to juggle this again.
Absolutely.
They'll have respect for that.
Yeah.
Everybody has that. There's nothing wrong with it.
I totally agree. And there's nothing wrong with stating how serious it is. You know, I was doing that, wasn't I? I was like saying, look, this is serious. Like, I'm scared. I'm so stressed out. I'm worried this is actually going to do something really bad. Now, anyone, like, if you've read books on trauma, and, you know, Body Keeps the Score talks about it, lots of books, they all talk about it, is the effect on the body, especially the books on polyvagal and how it affects that way. But, like, I mean, this is the sad aspect to how much abuse affects you long time after, or trauma. And so, regardless of whether it's interpersonal or circumstantial trauma, it's still going to have that effect. And so it's even worse when you realize that if it comes from a human being, or multiple human beings, then it's even more upsetting, because it really, like, they're physically hurting you. It's not just emotional violence, it's physical violence as well. Happy says totality of the stresses, you know, and the stress in America. Oh yeah, I read that one. Getting back to my savings, I finally saved enough for a house down payment, and I just cannot seem to make decisions. And my realtor got a little annoyed with me, so I decided for the best for me.
You know, you don't have to work with a realtor who gets upset because you're not making the money. This is your money.
Yeah.
You need to put it where you want to put it. If they're getting frustrated because you haven't made a decision, they're not guarding your interests well. And I'm not saying they're not a good realtor, but they're not being respectful of your interests if you're not ready to make a decision. You know they're making money off of you making a decision, and that's why they're pressuring you. So,
yeah, that's difficult with that. Like, a good compassionate one would be, I mean, it's difficult, you know. I guess in there,
maybe they got money troubles too.
Yeah,
okay, but they shouldn't pressure you.
No, they shouldn't. And they
That's
should
not-
understand that, you know, people that have indecision in those situations, and you probably expressed to them your situation, so they should have been compassionate and understanding and given you, you know, it's not like you're being picky because you want, like, something. You're being cautious because it's very serious. You've gone through a lot of stress and pain in the last few years. You're wanting to find somewhere to settle down, and you're worried about it being the right decision. It's a big thing. You've saved up all this money for that. It's easy for, you know, in their field, they're used to, like, people who've got multiple houses that buy and sell and flip houses. Like, it's easy for them to just sell a house to someone knowing that they're just doing it to make profit. For you, it's your home. And hopefully that they have a moral compass that will respect that, you know. And I know that you've spent a lot of time looking at the whole map of America, going, where do I want to live, you know, and trying to work out where you want to live. So it's even just first finding a place where you want to live, and then finding a place within that state or wherever that where it's a big decision for you, you know. So, and Happy continues, my Great Dane. Oh yeah, is decided for the best for you and your Great Dane. To sign a lease to a very nice apartment, like a really nice for us for 12 months while I figure out what's going on with me. I just cannot make the smallest decisions right now. That's you know, that's actually a good sort of decision that you made, I think, because you can always get in your truck and go travel for a week and come back to your apartment, which is you have that freedom to do that. and having an apartment is safer than having a house in that situation. These days you can get security systems and set them up. You can do things like you don't have all the liabilities of having to look after a property and the garden and all that sort of stuff. And, it's much easier, and it's a cost. Like, even if you rent that place for 12 months and you go away for a couple of weeks at a time and you go back and go, I wasn't even home for half the year. That's a better investment than buying a house right now. So, it's smart to actually go when, to go like, now's not the time to make this decision. That gives you time. You might decide in that 1 year that you actually find the best place for you to be. So, but Happy continues. I feel so broken and sick. I feel for you, and I'm sorry to hear that, mate. I know it will get better for you, but it doesn't mean you're not going through that difficult time right now. So, at least you've made those first few steps. So, even just making that decision of like not making this major decision maybe has taken a stress off your shoulders. So hopefully that is a good start. Happy says, I also have a remote job at a very high level, and my time taking during meetings has been very, and it's suffering besides my normal work because my speaking skills have been suffering so badly. There you go. That's a perfect example. That's the thing. The stress, executive dysfunction, not being able to speak at the same eloquency that you normally have, in a professional situation, and then suddenly you can't speak like the way you used to. That's really upsetting. And when you suddenly can't perform in a professional thing like that, then you have these additional fears. So, hopefully your work, your bosses and all that they are understanding of this. So hopefully that helps. And that we do become highly self-conscious when these functions reduce, because we're so used to having that ability, and then suddenly it's gone, and it's just like we forget what we had. And when it's something that you use for your job, it can become frightening, because then you have this additional stress. So I'll try and catch up. I see you're going through. Happy says it's just so difficult to listen to the body telling you to slow down when you're literally physically as slowed down as you could be. Maybe it's because the mind is not slowed down with it. Being able to slow the mind down and calm it is a really powerful thing. And the idle mind will go to, it will express the stress that you're having. So for me, I've been suffering nightmares almost every night for like at least the last month. And normally my nightmares might be 1 or 2 a week. Sometimes when they're at their worst, it's a constant thing. But the worst thing is that it's because I wasn't able to keep the active thing going. So the brain wasn't able to wear itself out during the day, so that during the night it has to do something. And then you've got all the stress, and then the infection or whatever as well on top. It's going to give you you're going to have nightmares that you just never really get normally, and they then affect you throughout the whole day, because you wake up and you're exhausted because you've been fighting through these nightmares in your sleep, and then you've waking up, you're in a reduced state of energy, and then you're also traumatized by the nightmares, and it's upsetting. Like, so then it's funny how the nightmares are a reflection of accumulation of cues and signals that have or been the source that have added together, and they are a way of help. Like, there's lots of theories of the purpose and meaning of dreams and nightmares and things like that, but a general consensus is that it is this general thing, and so that you can. It's what I'm talking about is the effect of how it wears you down, and you miss out, because each time you wake up and you're exhausted and you're traumatized from the nightmares, that's another morning or day or whole day that you lose. So how do you fix that? So things like mindfulness, nature therapy will be a big thing. Any form of exercise that, even if you can't do, so you're in that situation where you might not be able to do much. You have barriers. Exercise your mind in a way that you can, because it will not stop. But what you can do is calm it. So there are things like, Happy, you mentioned, you want to make nature videos, and I've just recently got a camera to make nature videos, so I'm going to be doing that too, and that will be very relaxing. And so you can just jump on YouTube and look for videos that are just nature scenes, and just sit there and watch it, even if you can't get out into nature. And even if it's a very calm scene, there's still going to be lots going on. There'll be birds flying across. There'll be, wind in the trees. There'll be water on the lake. There'll be whatever it is, there'll be insects buzzing around, sunlight flickering. All those things are stimuli that help give your brain that focused attention, but then you're also calming yourself down, because trauma and things like that do make things difficult it does make it difficult to relax and to calm. But there are ways to do it, and so so it says here, body telling you to slow down when you are literally physically as slow down as you could be. Exactly. I think you're right. You're saying that you think it's not. Maybe it's because the mind is not slowed down with it, and I think that's it. There's a disconnect, and so it creates this lag overlap thing. Honestly, it's a little terrifying, because I've literally questioned myself if I'm actively dying sometimes, not imminent death, but slowly. That fear of death is. You are not alone in that, and that fear of death, it's very scary, and so it can express as a panic attack, but it can also express as this slow dread, which is horrible. I don't know what's worse, a panic attack or this slow dread. And so in those situations, if you can't eat healthy food really helps. But if you can't, just drink lots of water and take vitamins, and avoid lots of alcohol or lots of cannabis or any of those sorts of things that you might be, or anyone might be using. But doesn't necessarily mean you have to stop those things. Just don't go to excess with anything like that. And a certain amount of accepting that just being aware of that is the feeling that you have, and accepting that you have that because of certain things, that at least reduces that fear, and that can help a lot. I would say, and it has helped me a lot with those things, because then once you sort of face that, you go, well, we don't really have much choice in that situation. So we sort of, it could really become that's where the panic attacks and again, even just that if you get stuck in that for too long, it will start affecting your whole body, because your body will start thinking that it is shutting down. And in a lot of cases, people can actually, put themselves into that situation through their own fear. And I suffer the negative self-talk and the negative. Humans have a negative bias by nature. It's actually anxiety and negative bias is a survival mechanism. We didn't have these things, we wouldn't have survived. We would have gotten eaten by lions, or fallen off a cliff, or eaten poisonous plants, or any number of things. Not got out of danger when a storm was coming, or any of those things. But then at the same time, having too much of that will do the exact same thing. So you can be so afraid and avoidant, or what's the word? Adverse to this, to that it will actually perpetuate. It creates its own thing. So knowing acceptance, first awareness, then acceptance, and then having a strategy to actually self-care and give yourself time, and give yourself things that will get you back to that. So the things, when I was sick a few weeks ago, there was a few times where it was just like I lost all my appetite, and then suddenly it was like, this is what my body feels like, and then I would that's what I would eat, and I hadn't eaten for 2 days, and it was just enough. And luckily I've been getting some good fresh produce, and one thing I got this pure cloudy apple juice, and I drank a couple of bottles of that while I was sick, and that really helped. And I knew when I was drinking it, I was like, oh, this is helping me. This is what I need right now. And I don't normally buy that stuff. It's delicious, but it's expensive. But my body was just telling me that's what I need right now. So hope he continues. I feel like I'm being very cautious, because what I've been through, and the simple living I've been doing. The trauma of losing my mum and nearly everything just has me in survival mode. You've been through so much, Happy, in the last few years, losing your mother, and also developing a condition from the stress. I mean, it's what you experienced is exactly that physical effect that is the result of stress and trauma. And so I can understand why it is upsetting and frightening for you. But I know that I can see that there is a good future with all this stuff for you. So you actually have a plan. You're looking towards the future, and you are being cautious, but that for good reason, because it's not like what's happened to you. What's happened to you has given you a reason to be cautious. So and this is again another thing is you can be overcautious, but then that's where the awareness and you can then rationalize when you are going when you need to do certain things. So it's very interesting. But that survival mode is it's a very big thing. Happy says, speaking on your comments about travel, I appreciate that feedback because it also allows me to save more and more. Maybe your fiance can speak more on this, but in today's America, I just feel like staying or buying in Texas would be a huge, huge mistake for long term. I'm also a dual citizen in the EU and have really been considering that leap of things if things get worse. Well, and also like your truck, you'd be able to just put it on a ship and take it over there. It's already got the steering wheel on the right side. But that, you might find a place there in Texas or somewhere nearby. I think even just giving it a go for a bit of time could help as renting and like like you said, doing the travel thing. Because you're lucky with that, with your job, you can sort of still work on the road, and you've already set up your work to do that, so you can do that. So that's a good thing. But you have options. That's a great thing, and obviously that would cost you a lot of money to move. I think worldwide, look, property in America's in some states has become very expensive, but compared to Canada and Australia, your property prices are way better. You can buy like a property at a house for like a quarter of what Canadians or Australians would spend on the same thing in a lot of states in America. It's like, even though the prices have gone right up. But Happy says, yeah, I have been drinking a lot of raw, unfiltered apple juice and orange juice. I also added zinc to my vitamin stack. Also, my Great Dane, for some reason, has been wanting to sleep with me every night. Well, it's going into winter too, so maybe was it Baku or Bako? Maybe just wants to stay warm. But also, they know when you're stressed out too. They're wanting to like console you and that sort of thing. So, they're very aware of those things. But that's really great. You've been doing that. Unfiltered apple juice and orange juice, and added zinc to your vitamin stack. That's it. All I know with zinc, like any vitamin, just know what your intake should be and don't go over that. The way I take vitamins generally is I'll take them for a while and then I'll stop and I'll give my body a rest. And then when I feel like I need some, I'll start taking them again. But you're getting those vitamins in the natural form through that juice, through the apple juice and the orange juice. So, yeah, Baku. That's it, Baku. It's classic. And he just knows something's wrong. Exactly. I'm just glad I'm not crazy for being so insensitive sorry, not insensitive, indecisive about the house purchase, and annoyed by my realtor for my renting for a bit. Yeah, look, they will get frustrated, but don't take it to heart, please, because that's like they do want that money, like, and sometimes it depends. Sometimes they'll in this country, like you might have someone who doesn't do sales, they only do rentals, realty, sometimes, or they'll do both. And so they might get frustrated because they think they've invested all this time. But look, that's their job. They know that they have to do that. If it shows you that it's their problem, it's not yours. So if they're going to get frustrated, it's their problem.
It's a much larger investment for you, double down on, than it is for them.
Yeah.
They've got other clients that they're working on, and they only get paid when they make a sale or get a buy. You're making a life decision. They're making a business decision. It's not fair.
It's not fair.
So don't think that their judgment of, honestly, if they get fed up with you, and you can find somebody else just as easily.
Yeah.
Really, there's a lot of people that are willing to work with you that have more patience than somebody who wants you to compromise how you're feeling in order to make this life-changing decision. That's a big deal.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry if I was stepping in.
No, not at all. And Happy,
I just walked in.
But Happy says, mention to your fiance my comments about Texas, please, since she's from the States.
Yeah, I'm from Virginia, and I've bought a house in South Carolina before, and I've worked with 6 realtors in my life myself, and certain ones, they were obviously about getting that kickback. They also have their finance guys. These realtors aren't just working with buyers and sellers. They're working with finance people. They're working with banks, and they're big boss, and they've got all this pressure on them. They're trying to fulfill their own little goals. And if you don't feel like they're in your corner, you don't need to be working with them, because there are realtors that will work in your corner. So don't deny that. Some people actually really got into the realtor business because they want somebody to feel happy about finding the home they want. So you can still find somebody that's like that, that's a realtor. If somebody's pressuring you unduly, just go find somebody that actually cares about your best interest instead.
That's a good. And also, commenting on it's hard. It's difficult. I haven't, I'm doing the whole thing.
You don't want to say it though.
No, but just if it's, I think where it doesn't matter where you are, there's going to be problems about things as far as different states, there are always different cities or different towns or suburbs. And it's not easy because you don't want to, it's a big investment to actually buy a house, and then that's where you are.
Texas is 10 times bigger than most countries.
Yeah.
So it's a different kind of place too. It is the Wild West.
So it's difficult, yeah, I guess. Happy says, no, I want her to respond to you. He was responding to you, saying you felt like you were cutting in. No, you're not cutting in at all.
You're from Maryland. All right. Yeah, I've been strongly considering North Carolina or New Hampshire. Well, I mean, a lot of North Carolina is actually still dealing with recovering from Helene.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Even just this past winter, I know it's going on into summer and soon to fall now, but there's still a lot of homeless people in North Carolina. But hey, I guess that means the land is cheap if you want to build your own.
And climate's a big thing, whether you don't mind rain or you don't mind the heat or humidity. You don't mind the cold or the snow. There's lots of things, you know. We don't want your cruiser getting all rusted out because they put too much salt on the roads, mate. So don't go somewhere where they put too much salt on the road.
Yeah. I'm of the opinion that you never want to be landlocked, and you always want to have reasonable house costs when it comes to heating, cooling. Like you don't want to live someplace that's so hot you have to rack up bills just to keep healthy, or so cold you have to rack up bills. So like a temperate climate, close to a water source, just take it back to basics.
Yep. And if you're wanting to grow food yourself, then that's a great thing to like help decide, you know, best type of soil, best type of growing length, you know, growing season, cost of food, accessibility to fresh produce. You know, if you like cheese, Wisconsin, isn't that like the dairy place? That's
Sorry,
what
it's too cold up there.
Exactly. But they also
no, but people froze to death in
have,
Texas
yeah,
a year
exactly.
or two ago because they had a cold
snap. But in summertime in Wisconsin, everyone goes to the river and goes swimming and catches catfish. You know, things like that. So you might be freezing through winter, but see, if you're mobile, you can like pack everything up and go travel for a month or two and then come back when it's warmer. But
was he interested in a mobile life? Like,
well, he already has been living sort of on the road, a semi nomad. But no, he's wanting to settle down. That's his thing, you know.
And that's a big decision. So if somebody's pressuring you to make a decision too quickly, then I think that's unfair.
Yeah.
They're gambling with your money, to be honest. So that's not very fair.
Hmm.
One of my realtors said, if you don't like the house, we can sell it in 6 months, because so many of their buyer sellers do that. They buy one thing, wait 6 months to see how the market changes, and then do something else with it. And
they're flippers.
Yeah.
Flipping it. And they're making profit on that. And who makes money the whole time? Just like
the middleman.
Yeah, just like a casino.
Yeah.
And also the councils and the local area governments and all that, from all the duties and things like that. That's why the housing market here in Australia has been allowed to go the way it is because so many people are making money off the process. They don't care that it's actually destroying the ability for Australians to buy their own home or even rent a home.
Yeah.
This is how bad it is. Australia's got the worst housing crisis probably in the world, and overvalued property prices. It's Australia is known as the Cayman Islands for property in the world. So people literally launder money here buying property. And because of that, Australians can't buy houses here. They can't even rent houses here. It's people are living in tents in parks. It's horrible. It's and it's not getting fixed by the government. They're not doing anything about it. They really don't, because they're making too much money off it. In fact, their response is to actually put fuel on the fire and make it worse. And it took them years of everyone screaming out. So it's really like we're at a point where they're not going to, like, there are too many people who are invested in the market, in the property scheme, that it's like too big to fail. They don't want anything, like they don't want it to change, because the money, the wealth that they've generated off the back of this overinflated situation, which is created disparity in the population between the ability people to actually buy property and get into the market. They don't want that to change. So they just want property prices to keep going up. So our federal bank and our governments and our local councils, they're all, and Everyone who's making money off the whole thing, they don't want it to change. So it's not going to get better. The only way it's going to get better is if us, the human beings, the people, we come up with our own solutions and we work out how we can make it better for ourselves. Problem is, when people try and do these things, they come down on them. So people who build tiny homes and things like that, and then go, single mothers who go and set up a tiny home on a property and they get rent, suddenly they get a knock on the door from the council saying, oh, sorry, you can't do that. Someone's made a complaint. And it's someone who owns a lot of property. This is the corruption of the world that we live in. I came up with a quote yesterday, right? I told you the quote. I said, if you think the world is corrupt, think again. It's way more corrupt than you could ever imagine.
Yeah, there's a lot more. There's still more.
However you think it is corrupt, it's way more than you think it is. And this, I'm sure this happens to people higher up in thing, but don't despair, because we can always find a way. I'm happy to live in a tent, but you know what? They actually make it illegal. They were evicting people living in tents, and it took like almost a year of backlash before these councils that were evicting people to say, oh, we're not going to actually do that. We're going to evict these people right now. But before that, they were literally going in and ripping out tents from homeless people that were living in parks. How horrible is that?
I mean, I've seen a lot of that because I'm out of Charleston, South Carolina. I've lived in South Carolina, Virginia. I've lived in Michigan. I've lived in Florida. So I'm mostly East Coast of the United States. And I have to say the homelessness in New York struck me the most, because you're driving on any road and there are tents just past the sidewalk everywhere. It doesn't matter if you're in the city or if you're on a highway, there are tents everywhere. When I was in Charleston, though, that's more of an uppity city. They've got a lot of big money coming in there recently. People are retiring from New York City to Charleston, South Carolina, to be on the coast. And they don't like to have riffraff, people sleeping under their porches, people sleeping under the interstate overpasses. And so they would just go in and set all of them ablaze. Be like, oh, you've lost all of your stuff. I guess you have nowhere to go. And basically just push them further and further up into the forest. And by that, I mean up into Orangeburg County. So like Charleston County goes to Orangeburg County, goes to Columbia County, which is the capital. So Charleston is the port city. Columbia is central in the state. Orangeburg is where everybody is getting pressed into that's homeless from both sides. And so nobody's moderating that. They just like, oh, well, we want these nice cities on both sides. And so now Orangeburg is basically drugs and homelessness. But they didn't solve any problem. They just hid it. They pushed them out of those cities.
It's horrible when those things get to that point. And people say, oh, this just happens just accidentally. No, nothing happens like that for no reason. It's by design. People understand these things and they create those situations.
But in New York, they didn't make the people leave. They just let everybody see it. So that was weird.
But Happy says his filters for where he wants to be is, one, less backwards in the Texas politics, better infrastructure as mentioned, great oncology support, actual seasons. I'd like to avoid harsh winters, low natural disaster risk. So, I guess it's
Great Lakes area, yeah. Maybe. Great Lakes are almost like an ocean.
So you get the natural, like, so there's so many things to consider with, you got the natural disasters, the extreme weather. Yeah, you want to have seasons. If you want to have actual seasons, then you go to a place like on the northeast coast, like Oregon and Washington State. They seem like nice places, nice and green and that, but then it's too wet. But then you go Colorado sounds like a great place, but then you do have fires, but then you also have the drought, and then you also have the cold. But then if you like mountains, Colorado might be a good place. Go up in the mountains. I don't know enough about America to really comment about those things, but like access to good medical care is a big thing.
I think America isn't widely acknowledged as a good cancer care place, despite all of the money they throw at it. I've known plenty of people that were struggling with cancer in America, and Charleston is actually known as one of the oncology hotspots. Like, if you've got cancer, go there. And different life experiences for myself, I've been in those spots. I've gone to lots of oncology clinics around Charleston, which is South Carolina, supposedly really good for it. And I'm not a fan of current oncology treatments generally. I don't know. I don't have cancer. It's only family members that I've known with cancer. So
the next one is manageable income tax for my bracket. That's a big thing. So different states have got income tax laws, which is why people move to certain places, and that's fair enough. You don't want to go to somewhere like California where it's just going to like strip you of all your income just to live there.
I like the Mayo Clinic, actually. Sorry, I read ahead.
Hopeful access to nature and water, ocean. So that's a big thing. So if you want to live within an hour's drive of the coast, is a good thing. He continues, I was wanting to move to Seattle area, but the tents and the homelessness really shocked me. Feel empathy for the people, but in some areas you'll start to see used needles, bodily waste on the street. Absolutely, I've been watching the news for the last 10 years. It's been endorsed. So, okay, when I say people living in tents here, they're not criminals like that. And I'm not trying to say that the people who are homeless are criminals, but I've seen enough of what's been happening, and they changed the laws so that in both in New York and in California, where I get places like Seattle where people basically steal things from shops and then they sell them on the street. For it organized crime moved in, and it's a difficult situation. And from an outsider who's been watching this unfold over the last 10, 20 years, because it's been going on long before current times, and it's not necessarily a national thing. The problems are compounded by local laws which incentivize the theft. You go to these places and businesses just move out. When they get to a certain point, when their inventory keeps getting stripped by people stealing it, they just shut the stores. And so everyone who lives in those areas no longer have a hardware store or a department store or whatever, or a supermarket, because the shopping chain just says, no, we're not even going to operate there. It's costs too much. And it goes back to who are the people making these laws which are incentivizing this thing, rather than creating social assistance programs to help people on the lower socioeconomic status to actually live, like get access to clean food, healthy food, programs to teach them how to do things that they may not, people who become homeless, it's not for no reason. People don't just go, oh, I just want to be homeless. No, or I just want to be a drug addict. No, they've suffered extreme abuse in their life. Maybe some of them made bad decisions and it got worse and worse. But
everybody was a child once.
Yeah.
And they weren't addicted or homeless to start with unless they were.
Exactly.
And even that wouldn't be their fault. So
the drug trials that they had in Oregon is a classic example. They were like, yeah, we're not going to criminalize the use of drugs and all that, but we're going to do this thing. We give them a card and we're going to say, you know, go see this person and try and go through a rehabilitation. They never did they didn't follow up on it. No one would call the number and say, yeah, I want to get help. They would just take the card and say, oh, yeah, no worries. And then be on the ground the next day. Now, I don't want to really go into the details about the fentanyl and all that, but this is warfare that's coming from international other countries into your country through Canada and through Australian on ships. I'm not going to say where it comes from. You can work all that stuff out, but it's manufactured in big factories, and it's actually the freight is paid for by particular countries that's endorsing this whole process. So, you know, your country is being it's siege warfare. But I don't want to go into that stuff. But like, it's a big problem, and it's just gotten worse. So, what do you do? So, anyway, they had to scrap the trials they had in Oregon because they didn't do it properly. They didn't follow through. If they said, yes, we won't prosecute you for doing these drugs, but you have to do these things. They didn't do that. They just said, here, take this card, and the person would be back out on the street, and then they'd be dead within a week. So that's a difficult thing. So how do you fix that? Inequality, how do we fix that? You know, no, it really shows who cares, who actually cares about people, and who actually cares about the way things morally should be done. So you can really judge what, and it's difficult because essentially those things have been incentivized. The homelessness hotspots were created in America because of these laws. So people would literally travel to these states just because it was a perfect place to be. They could take as many drugs they want. They could break the law, go and steal up to $1,000 worth of items from a shop and be able to walk out with it. What's going on? This isn't by chance. This is on purpose. You know, these things aren't just accidents. You know, and if they are, the people who are making these laws are absolutely clueless and shouldn't be in that position. So when you're seeing this from the outside looking in, it's insane. And the whole world has been watching America since the internet. We've had access to seeing what's actually happening on the ground. Now, you could say that most of the Western world sees the Western world. We don't really see into the East because there's these big firewalls. So we don't really get to see what's happening, but we do get to see through the internet what is happening through people showing us and telling us what's happening. And these same things are happening in the East as well. So with that respect, the best thing to do is to realize that look after yourself, look after your brother and sister, fellow human being, as much as you can, and know that they're not going to stop what they're doing. They're going to keep looking after their mates, their friends, and their thing, and they're going to keep pushing people to the side. So how do we counteract that? Well, we educate ourselves, we grow our own food, we look after each other. We don't become the hate that they want us to be. So we live in a world where it's divide and rule, and they just want to keep everyone fighting amongst themselves because then they can just keep doing what they want to do. They're just going to keep making their money, and we're going to suffer. So how do we counteract that? We turn this adversity into prosperity. You know, I'm happy to eat red beans and rice and a bit of soy sauce, or just whatever, as long as there's something. But if I'm growing my own food, I can put a little bit of this on top, and then suddenly it's not so bad.
Nashville is nice if you like New Hampshire, though.
Isn't that, he said he did live there or something like that.
Yeah. It's one of the top rated places in the US. So if you're interested, it's not a bad bet. But it's so hard to place your bet anywhere because things are changing so quickly.
Right, you read this one. He says, I've considered Rochester, Minnesota. And
Rochester is New York, isn't it?
I don't know. No, it might be a place in Minnesota. Access to the Mayo Clinic, but winters, yeah. So,
well, Mayo Clinic is great. They do, it's closest to public health care you're going to get in America, because they're a research hospital that's completely nonprofit funded. So if you got something that they're interested in, they'll look into it for free. So that's good to be close to if you've got something that's like a niche research spectrum for them, which cancer can fall into.
Oh, and he's sort of is autoimmune, which it's.
Are you telling people's business?
No, he's mentioned it in the chat many times.
Okay.
So
yeah,
I'm just letting everyone know that he doesn't necessarily have that. They co-align because they both, it's the same thing. It's helping you heal using those modern medical techniques.
Well, I've known 3 people from there, and they always wanted to go back. They were in college with me, and I think they have. So 3 people isn't enough to make an all-encompassing opinion on, but they liked it and they went back. So
yeah, there you go. But having access to the ocean is a big thing. So, and no winters. So we can keep working on that. You'll find the best place. He said that's why I was considering New Hampshire, 0 income tax, because Boston Medical, close to the Boston Medical facilities, I can find cute place near the water in Portsmouth, easier winters than MN. I don't know which state that is, but and
Minnesota.
Minnesota, yep. And Happy says completely agree with you, and that's so sad. It's like the officials on the West Coast just casually ship these people who are suffering up and down the coast for other cities to deal. Exactly, they've had buses. They just put them on buses and send them. That's why it got out of control in New York and California. Like they were literally just putting them on buses and saying, "Go across the state line. We don't want it." Give them a bit of money and say, "Here you go." Not our problem anymore. And that's horrible when you think about it. Like, like there could be, like, we could solve these problems tomorrow. It's not like we don't have enough land.
There's no money in solving problems.
Yeah, well, that's it. So keeping that going is what it's all about, isn't it? So
it is, though. It is. The mean joke.
Happy Hermit. It is horrible. I didn't mean to like make light of it, but that's how they think. Never been to NH, but I'd like to go visit first. If you're so right about the change. And numbers. Oh, here we go. We've got someone else here. Amy Suez. How you going, Amy? Good to see you. It says our numbers are low to fight the system. It's so scary in the UK now. What do you think the deal is with Trump visiting King Charles? Well, there's a lot of things there. Yeah, the UK is being torn down. It's been the whole West is being put through a planned decline, and this is being done by design. And sadly, it's their own people. Now, Keir Starmer was basically responsible for the grooming gangs reports. So, and he's now the Prime Minister. So look what they do. He is hopefully Keir Starmer ends up in jail for what he has done to his own country. And the thousands and thousands of young women, they were children, and now a lot of them are young adults and have had their lives destroyed, and their own government stood by and did nothing. This was a concerted effort. And the thing is, people say, oh, they couldn't do anything. This is people from local councils, social services, police, same thing. Like, the government knew about this the whole time, and they chose not to do anything about it. So, yeah, I'm surprised he's still in power. I wouldn't be surprised if Keir Starmer is no longer Prime Minister by the end of the year. And that, sadly, these people, it's very hard for them to get brought into account. But the whole world knows what happened to these with this stuff. Like, we know what's been going on.
Did you read about Trump's visit
No, I didn't.
to the UK?
No.
One thing I saw, the monarch reportedly urged aides to treat their guest like a king for a day in a special gesture. Source claimed he knew how much Trump loves optics, including extravagant carriages and trumpets. Trump trumpets. Oh gosh. And red carpets. I don't know what to think of that.
Well, he is blood related, right?
Is Trump blood related to royalty in England?
He is.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's third cousin type thing. But like, geopolitically, I don't know what to say about that.
Sorry.
It's difficult, but yeah, the Amy Suez was. I've been watching what's been happening to the UK for a lot. Look, you're living in 1984, where people are being pulled in. The thousands of people have been pulled up by the police for saying something on the internet.
Free speech died there, as far as I can tell. So be careful, my love, please.
But it's exactly they create self-censorship by the fear of speaking out about something. Now, the NHS has been, and this is hearsay, this is my opinion, they've actually been prioritizing certain procedures on people that are elective, that cost a lot of money, and essentially preventing other people from getting essential medical help to keep them alive.
So it's
and also, well, I'm trying to say it without actually saying what it is, and people can work out what I'm saying. They're prioritizing elective surgery and giving it to people for basically free. And I'm not going to say what those surgeries are. And at the same time, essentially killing the elderly and young people that have got severe diseases because their health system can't afford it. Now, that is a gross misjustice. And the health system's overloaded. Now, we can see this. We're watching what's been happening from the outside looking in. It's the same as America. People have been seeing what's going on. So my heart goes out to the people. Look, England was and still is, through the colonial expansion of empires and all that, I could go on for hours talking about this stuff, but like, the history of the world, empires will go through a certain time where they get their prominence, and then they go through a decline, and they sometimes get sanctioned for all the things that they did while they were in power. Now, the British, or the British Empire, has a bit of blood on their hands for the things that they did through their colonial expansion. but they also did some amazing, great things to the world. You could say the same thing about any other empire that was in power and in the lead at a certain time. It does not have any, the fact that the people that live there today have inherited this decline that is being forced on them by their own governments is treachery, and it is inhumane to the people that live there. Now, it's really sad that this is the world we live in. That I only mentioned the health system and the fact that people are being pulled in for speaking about injustices online. And so rather than actually fighting crime and bringing to account horrible crimes that are going on, the police are too busy knocking on someone's door and saying, "Oh, did you post something on Facebook about so and so? We're going to have to bring you you're going to have to come into the nick, mate. You're going into jail for that." And dragging people out in front of their children for saying something, and because they believe in something, they're seeing something that's going on that's horrible. It's really upsetting to see, and it's scary because the thing is, what people say, it's like the famous quote, "They'll come for you next." You see, if you don't stand up for that, they'll come for you next, and that's the thing. So in a lot of ways, these things that happen in the world, because the world's connected in this massive thing like that, things are shown to us as examples. They make examples of one country so that other countries go, "Oh, look at what they're doing to them. Better not do that." So like in some ways, and there's also the sanctioning thing that happens as well. And some of that is to do with, there's things like blood debts that actually go over hundreds and sometimes thousands of years. Now, these ancient empires are still fighting wars from thousands of years ago. They're not going to tell you about that. People think that these wars are just like here and there. You look into the history of, like, for instance, Ukraine even. Like, I don't even want to talk about that stuff, but like it goes back 10,000 years at least, and multiple empires that span the entire globe almost. Like, it's not simple. And these people hold grudges. So for us as humans, we need to like love each other and let go of these grudges that go back. But this is the thing. Within these empires, they hold these grudges. They're like, "Oh, you did this to us 500 years ago. That wasn't like." So this is what's happening in England right now. I think that they're being punished for stuff that had nothing to do with them. So how do they do it? Decline and sanction, keep them, suppression, keep them down. Look at how Russia's been treated. Keep them down. NATO's been surrounding them, poking them from all surrounds. And if you watch the rhetoric that's being placed on them, like their country, if you're a Russian person, you've gone through like your country going through like the oligarchs rising and the corruption and everything getting stripped and the fear of everything. And they've had their own genocides and they've had their internal struggles. It's really sad. Why do humans do all this stuff to each other? We should just love each other and care for each other. And, like, I love how the whole world's got so much knowledge to share. And, like all the music I listen to is from all around the world. All the food I like is from all around the world. The movies, same thing. Even though, like, I don't watch much movies, but I've always been a big fan of, like, not just one thing, not just Hollywood stuff or not just Australian made stuff, because we live in a world where we are connected like that. We should appreciate what we do have from this interconnected world, but we shouldn't be, how do we get past all this stuff? So,
MKG is here.
MJG's here, awesome. I just because I could go on for ages talking about that stuff, but like Yeah, Happy says, I have really good health insurance, but yeah, it's autoimmune disease. It's just research hospitals a great level of care as well. Yeah, see, that's it. It's worth finding something like that and then, working with them because they'll care for you. And you'll get you already have the insurance, but you also want the care as well. And you actually care for humans. So whatever they learn from helping you, they're going to help other people. And that's a big part of being human. So Happy says, Amy brings up a great point. I feel like what we are seeing in America is becoming systemic. Yeah, it is. It's happening everywhere in the West, Canada, UK, New Zealand, Australia, and America are the main places. And parts of Europe, very much similar in different varying degrees. And some countries in Europe are able to sort of put sort of safeguards, on not letting that stuff happen. But it's being done now. There's multiple reasons why this is being happening. They're trying to bring in new money system. There's I could go into this stuff, but I don't want to try and say why it's happening. Maybe how can we live and prosper in this difficult times? Because as humans, we've always survived this stuff. It's been done to us over and over. And we need to remember is to be compassionate and caring and to cooperate. They're good things, and still be critical, because we've been told to be fear of being critical. Now, we live in a world, especially in the West, and it's worse in other places, where if you speak out, they'll take you away and you won't be heard of again. That still happens here too in the West. So it's false to actually say that doesn't happen here. It just happens differently. So we have a more sort of subtle kind of subtle version of oppression here. It's just done by different means. It's not as brutal as it is in other places. So how do we survive all this stuff? Well, we learn to live with less and enjoy, like the whole World Economic Forum, you will own nothing and be happy. That how disconfirming is that? As a human being, it's like you will own nothing. What's wrong with owning something? If you don't own anything, what do you own? Oh, they're going to say you don't own anything. So they're saying you don't even own your own body. You don't even own your own mind. You don't even own anything. But you'll be happy. You'll be a pleasant slave to the system and do whatever we say. No wonder people rejected that. So I see Amy says they're greed, but that's referring to what I was saying earlier. So the excess or the kleptocracy that we live in, that's always going to exist. But like learning to live with less is a humbling thing. But it also means that when you have excess, you're more easy. You're going to be wanting to share when you do have excess, because you're happy to share. You know that you can live without as much. And it also means that for the people who are trying to fight capitalism or the consumer society, the overconsumption of things, then it counteracts that too, just by austerity, and that gives more meaning to things. So social interaction means more. It's all been taken from us. Everything's been taken from us. Food, like water, still we get water, but it's not perfect. You know, it's got stuff in it we don't. And people in certain countries, they lose the rights to, even if they own property, they're not even allowed to use the water they have there. And yet big companies can do what they like. Now, talking about places where you want to go live, yes, I just see the latest comment. I blame tech. Talking about places where you want to go live. Let's say you want to go live out in the countryside, and you find this beautiful place out in the country. Then suddenly you find out there's a data center for AI and surveillance monitoring that's getting set up in your local neighborhood, that's going to take all the water, and they've bought up all the water rights, and they've bought off the government. So you can't do anything. Suddenly they've changed the laws, and you have eminent domain. So the government will just take your property anyway. So it's really upsetting that we live in this world.
Texas is the best place to live if you're worried about eminent domain, because they're allowed to secede from the United States much easier. It was part of their original, what is it, constitution? Because
Yep.
Texas has their own constitution. They're the freest of the United States.
Canada, provinces in Canada are all talking about secede, like splitting, secession themselves, because it's so corrupt, right? Why do you think there are people marching all over the world, and there's all these revolutions popping up? Some of these revolutions aren't manufactured revolutions with agent provocateurs and pre-planned and all this stuff, color revolutions where the people suddenly walk out of a building, hold their placards, let people do some stuff, and then they walk back. They're not like actors, paid actors creating these things. Some of these are actual real people, you know. For instance, the protest recently in the UK, it was broadcast here, the very limited, very tiny amount. They said they were all far right, and they called them all racist, far right, and they said there was only like, there was up to 100,000. Well, there was millions of people there. So the media, and this has been going on for years, whenever there is a protest where the media doesn't want people to know about, they will just blatantly lie about it, and they will slander the people who are protesting. So what does that say to the general population, that when they see the media do these things? Well, if they're going to say this about people who are not racist, like if you see footage of these protests, they're people from all over the world, all different races and nationalities. Now they're actually dehumanizing people in the ability to care about their own country. And this has been happening here as well. In Australia, the divide has been massive. Australia is a multicultural country, and it always has been. Now, there has been a small amount of racism here, right? And within the culture, people will point out differences because people are different, right? And at different times, and that we do have a history and a past as a country or a nation where things weren't good. The way that the native people here, the Aboriginals, the Indigenous people of Australia have been absolutely had horrible things, genocide. But all this work that has been going on for reconciliation and all that is being undermined by this divide that is being created by the media to tell everyone that they're racist. So we have people who are being paid by the government in our state-sponsored media to say that Australians are racist when we're not. Compared to the rest of the world, we're like, you go to some countries in the world, like that, yes, completely different to here. But they're saying, but we are multicultural. We love, like, when I love the fact that I know people from all over the world, and I get to ask them about where they come from. And you know what? Most of them come from horrible, war-torn places, and they have pain and trauma. and they're glad to be here. And they, you know what else? They get to generate wealth and create families. But suddenly there are people that control the media, and through social media and all this stuff, they put into people's heads that people are, they create a negative aspersion or a negative image of what people generally are or think, which is adverse to what is reality. And this is a form of oppression, because they're blatantly lying, you know. So it's so upsetting, because we all want to get along. Now, there is things like organized crime, and there are things like horrible atrocities that happen in different countries that can be attributed to certain groups or organized crime. And because the government doesn't do anything about certain things, people can get upset about those things. That does not mean they're racist. They just want a safe and fair society to live in, and to feel safe because they're being protected by the government. Not just them, but their fellow men and women and children and elderly. So as humans, we just need to, the biggest fear that there is in the world by the people that want to push us in directions and keep making us feel like we're being gaslit by these people who run this stuff. So we can't let them win. We have to, and we're not going to fight. We're just going to live and love each other and love ourselves and nurture ourselves and grow and do things. We're here because we've got trauma and we're still living with pain, but we don't give up and we care for each other. That's what I love about here, these chats. We do care for each other. These things, and this is the thing, religion can teach us some great things, compassion and caring and all that stuff. But we can also be critical of religion, not just one religion, all of them. Same thing. Doesn't mean we're saying no. We're just saying we're not going to not let bad things happen. And that's the thing. We want to look after each other. We don't want to like everyone just getting along in some way. So what other things can we do? We not throwing away things that we were given. So if you look at all our technology that we have, there is this argument that, well, it was paid for by this. We own this technology and we gave it to you. No. Throughout history, humans have been essentially slaves the whole time, whether they're indentured or as debt slaves. And then humans have almost always been kept suppressed and only allowed up through the ranks if they're going to comply. And that's understandable, that the way that civilizations and structures within societies do this in order to preserve and keep the system running the way it is. Now, it is a false meritocracy. Exactly. Yeah, it's not better. It's only they benefit. Yeah.
Problem. Also, meritocracy that have power are benefited having that position.
Exactly. And then they own, like, so you think about the internet and all the people who made all this code, made all this stuff, and then people stole it. So AI is a classic example. They literally vacuumed it all up like the people who talk about narcissists and stuff, they call it hoovering. They just grab it all and it's all theirs. This is the way the world is. It's like, oh, that's yours, it's mine now. Oh, that's yours, it's mine now. Oh, that's yours, that's mine now. No, It's all of ours. We created it. The people who created the chips inside computers, they did it because they wanted to make the world better. Some of them were paid by the military. Some of them were paid by big tech companies. Some of them did it because they just wanted to make things better for everyone. And they had this idea to make things better. Most ideas and technology come from genuine people that just want to do good. And then you have these nefarious side that actually create stuff for the purpose of enslaving. And that's what we've seen with social media as well. It wasn't to connect us to, what we thought would be to connect us and make us. No, it was all about attention grabbing and selling us stuff and then manipulating, pushing us down certain avenues and then experimenting on us and then curating our life and removing from our own ability to think. So we're creating, humans are going through cognitive decline because we're losing the ability to think because we're being shown stuff. Now, I'm talking to you on social media, but we're actually right here now chatting, and I'm looking at the chats, and I haven't chatted. I haven't read the chats for a while because I've been too busy. When I get on these topics and stuff, I could just go on for hours, But I love this. I love that we're able to have a conversation like this. We should. This is conversations like this we should be able to have. And the big end of town need to hear us. And we need to follow through with what we want to do too. We need to care about ourselves. We need to remember that we've been pushed aside and we need to not forget ourselves, but also think about that elderly couple that live next door or around the corner. Go see how they're going. Think about like your own parents or your own kids or your own friends. I've got a full-on anxiety and I shut myself off from society most, but having this connection here has made such a big difference. So it's so difficult. We've become so disconnected by things like social media where like we're afraid to even look at what other people are doing. This is what I get. If I look on Facebook, I had years where I would get on Facebook and I would be just upset. So all I would see was everyone else having a great time and I'm miserable sitting at home alone, looking at my screen, just going, I'm not doing anything. And look at all these people living the life. They're traveling around, they're doing this. And it creates social anxiety status anxiety because I'm not where they are. And in reality, we make our own world. Like we can make use of what we have. So I just keep jumping from topic to topic, but I hope I'm coherent enough. But yeah, MJG's here. Awesome. MJG says waving to the pastor, and he's got the snake there from the other day, the python, and the heart. LKW's here. Mama Bear's here. Says hello, beautiful ones. How you going, LKW? MJG's waving. Amy Suez says yes, greed. Yeah, that's exactly that. It's greed, total domination. There's this world we live in where it's like they want to own everything. And there's the old saying, nothing's new under the sun, but based on that doesn't mean that evil will triumph forever. It just means that we understand that there has been this thing there forever and we just need to work around it. And that we don't have to, if we find our own thing to focus on, then it's whatever they do to us is only going to hurt them because we're going to be too busy living a life that we are happy with. So rather than being sold these things that we feel like we need, whether it's status or material items or wealth in the form of money or property, then we can do without as long as we can. Like there is a point within societies where they are so unjust on the people that it is really bad. Like there is the hierarchy of needs, and basically when those base level needs are like not met, then the world, you could say that things need to change in that area, and the world is getting close to that point in a lot of places because of that. And so there is always a way, and we do have to, I keep thinking of Tolkien references and stuff, but like, there's always a way. We just stay true and remember the things that make us human. Because we are. There's this trick that goes on in the world where especially trauma. I suffer this with it will give me a reason to forget the things that make me who I am and what I believe in, and then also stop doing the things that will make me progress. And it's like keeping us down, keeping me down. And what happens is we end up doing it to ourselves. And someone told me a story about, he was this is fortuitous because he went on a trip to Nepal when we just finished high school, and he said they went on this I think it was a long trip, like a week or 2 weeks with elephants, and hiking and with elephants. And he said he just got out of high school and he was telling me all the stuff that he experienced. And he goes, yeah, and we were on the elephants, and like the elephant had this, the master had this stick, right? And he would beat the elephant with the stick. It was a pretty rough way to keep the elephant in line. And he'd hit this elephant so hard the stick broke. And you know what the elephant did? Went and picked up another stick and gave it to the master, or sitting on his back, so he had a new stick to hit him with. And he told me this, and I was just like, wow. And you might notice I've got a stock whip here. I'm a vegetarian, by the way, but this is the representation. Like, they don't actually hit the animals with that. It's to make a sound, to make them go a certain way. I'm actually very much, for me, this is like my ancestors and caring about history and stuff. And I learned how to crack a whip when I was young. My granddad taught me how to crack a whip. So one day I thought, I want to get a whip so I can learn crack it again. So don't think that, same thing with this, indentured slaves. I'm very much against trafficking and sex work and all that stuff as a form. It's horrible. And that's a reminder for me, this print. So it might seem juxtapose me talking about these things and having these two things, but they're reminders for me about the world we live in. And if you look at this picture, what is she doing? She's looking at herself in the mirror. She is trapped. She is trapped. What did these geishas get to do? They got to learn to become masters of things. They got to have power and control in a very corrupt world that they lived in. But they were inherently slaves, and they had to sell their bodies. And as soon as they didn't want them anymore, often they were done away with. So we have to look at the world we live in and remind ourselves of what there is. And what do you think she's seeing when she sees that? She sees her own pain of where she is. I mean, it's art. This is my interpretation of what that means. it's also lifting the veil of this is the society that existed, and it still exists today. There's no different what's going on today. In fact, what's going on today is way worse than what happened in throughout history, because it's like through the internet, people are being trafficked online nowadays. People are, it's luckily there's been a sort of change because social media was actually promoting this stuff and actually grooming people into this, and they've pulled back because there's been a backlash, because it's happened in this last 6 months to a year because of some notable people that were promoting themselves through major social media networks to push them into the thing, and that was actually grooming young girls to grow up thinking that that's what they want to be when they grow up. It's like, what? There's that song, Cat Stevens, It's a Wild World. If I listen to that song, it brings me to tears. It's like, I don't know if that's what that song's about, but to me, that's what it's about. So, um, yeah, Amy says, yeah, I blame tech. Yeah, that's right. And then the lies, yes, 100%, 1,000%. Amy says, yeah. Happy says, yeah, 100% free Palestine. Exactly. Look, there's nothing anti-Semitic about criticizing Israel's response. That's criticizing a country's response. Every country does that, is a power that has military, that does things, that does bad things. They should be able to be criticized in a world. If we're going to have this world where we should be able to do and not be told, but then people are self-censoring to talk about these things, and the media agencies aren't talking about things. So LKW says, so true, true words. Thank you. Amy says, we all have one chance with the tear. I just wish we could all be empathic, and then the greed would end. Just fed lies all the time. Exactly. It gets to a point where we just can't take it anymore. Hey, but there are these little things that we can do, and it's not just for each other, it's also for ourselves. So, do something for someone else and then do something for yourself. It helps. So Amy says, evil ain't born, they are created. Bring back the good old days, eh? Chatting over a brew. Exactly. Well, hey, Amy, they've got they've got a law that they passed in the UK where if you say something that's offensive to someone in the pub, they can fine you or something, because it's traumatizing for and this is upsetting for people. We all suffer trauma here. And we're trying to get past it, or we're learning how to live with it and grow and get past it. And then they're bringing in laws where they're saying that someone overhearing a conversation in a pub that happens to work there can now claim damages because they heard someone have a conversation about something. Isn't that just true? That's insanity. So we should be able to have a conversation. We should be able to debate about things and communicate. So, it's a big thing when those things stop. It really affects us all. So, yes. And in fact, I think that's what we're doing now. We're sitting around. I'm actually having a beer tonight. This is the first time I've had a beer in weeks, maybe a month. I mean, I've had one beer, but I had a sip of it and I couldn't drink anymore, and I wasn't well. So, but we're having a beer. So it's moderation. I'm only having like, this is my second beer, so I probably won't have any more. But I'm enjoying it. Oh, LKW says, love our world with the heart and style. That's it. We got to love our world. We got to appreciate it. Harmony's here. Harmony Seeker says, hi all. How you going, Harmony? So glad you're here. MJG says, hi, Harmony, with the waving hand. LKW says, there is a data center in my neighborhood. Oh, that's scary. It's going to take all your water, and there's going to be power outages maybe for you, but not for them. They're everywhere. And look, this is the thing. Like, it's only now, in the last few weeks, I have seen environmental groups or like social justice groups starting to talk about data centers and AI as being, oh, what's going on here? It's bad for the environment, it's bad for humans, it's bad. Where were they for the last 10 years? Like, this has been building up for 10 years, like longer, really, like much longer, but like it's just gotten out of control in this short period of time. Long before like things like ChatGPT were released to the public, like this was all happening in the background. If you go like the history of the botnet project, so the stock market has been gamified for 30, almost 40 years. Like classical AI, which is where AI came from, which is like heuristic. I don't want to go into the details, but I studied AI for like 5-6 years, 15 years ago. So I know a lot about the history of it and all, and where it was going. And I was scared off by, I could see what was coming, and I knew what was coming, and all this is what we're living in now. Couldn't do anything about it. But at least this is the thing. These environmental groups were going, they were like putting soup, they were spraying paint and soup on Picasso's and Van Gogh paintings, and they weren't saying anything about the data centers or the internet in general. So it goes to show what their priorities are, who they're working for. So we're not stupid. Like, they think that because if they're only going to point out one thing and really the problem's over here, then we're going to go, who are you really working for? What are you trying to get us? So at least they're finally realizing that this is actually something that's not only dangerous because it can lead to totalitarianism and like oppressive regimes where we're basically hyper surveilled. So people that already have anxiety are going to have it worse. We literally have, like what they've been saying in the science fiction novels and movies, of a dystopian future is being created by these tech elites. Like, they literally, one of the biggest companies named its, who get paid to kill, like they get paid to kill people with drones using AI data center networks and crawling them, to protect the world or whatever. But no, it's to keep supremacy. They named their brand of what J.R.R. Tolkien used as the all-seeing eye within Lord of the Rings, the technology within that. And they think they're using it as a badge of like, ha ha ha, look at us. It's like calling your brand Satan or something like that. And no one says anything about it. Like, it's just making more and more money every day because it's got like the #1 contract with the military. No one's saying anything because they're scared, because this company can literally, what Zbigniew Brzezinski, I don't know the quote exactly. He said, in the future, I forget the quote. He said, he basically said that it used to take lots of people to basically neutralize a target, a dissident, someone who's got, or a whistleblower or something like that. It would take a lot of people. And he said, well, in the future, it won't take anything at all because they'll have the technology for that. And we're living in that time right now. I used to know that quote. I used to know all these quotes, but it became too traumatizing for me because when you know too much, you don't want to know anything because you can see what's happening and you can see what's coming. So what do? We don't worry about that stuff. We live, we love, we do what we can, you know? If the, I don't want to go start talking about AI and all this sort of stuff, but I already have. But a good thing to talk about it with is like, not just follow the money, but follow, what is the purpose? You know, what is the purpose? What is the intended purpose? And what's the ulterior purpose? None of these things really have just one thing. There is no single use thing for technology. It's released for one thing, but it has multiple other things. And you find out later that it was like a carrier to get people to adopt one thing, and then they accept it, and then they get all these other things as a bonus. It's the same thing with when they introduce a law. We might think it's for this, but they're actually got a purpose for other things. Again, we can't lose hope. We can still keep, and we can prosper. Inherently, most people, almost everyone on the planet is peaceful, caring. I believe. And if they're not, they were once that way and they were pushed in a direction. So they've got a chance to redeem themselves. I'm not perfect. I'm very lucky. I'm getting supported by the government to start a business so that I can help people survive after trauma. I'm very fortunate. I'm so lucky, right? I'm not going to stop being critical of the government, but I'm not a threat to them. I'm a human being. I want a government that I love and respect, right? I do want that. We should be proud of our countries and our elected officials. Is that the world we live in? Should we be demonized by criticizing? No. And the thing is that this whole censorship thing happens across everything. So how do we counteract it? Don't focus our attention too much on those things. Focus on ourselves and what we can do for other people as close to us as we can. And at the same time, it's very hard for us to not be silent because we have been conditioned to be silent. And we're continuously being conditioned by being shown publicly the ramifications of what happens to whistleblowers, or people say something that the either groups that have got vested interests that goes against what they want, so they become a target, and then they use things. So, and this is the big danger of hyper surveillance, is that it creates a very much dystopian world, and that's what's being created. So how do we counteract it? Care for each other, call them into account. When they demonize, the thing is that those in power use these methods to keep us in that state. So they create disillusionment. So there's all these steps in ideological subversion in order to break down a society, so there's so many ways of changing the world. So the people that want to, there's all these groups that are all wanting to fight and change. So, but we forget we have the power too. We all have the power. We can't forget that, So But okay, there is a data center in my neighborhood. Yeah, look, moderation. All this stuff could be done in moderation. Another thing that happens is a lot of this stuff's being paid for by people that don't want it. So it's not just investment money. It's like fronts. So companies will have one business and then they'll get people to pay for a service, but then they're funneling all that money into this other project. It's exactly the way that, it's like how black ops works in intelligence agencies. It's how they fund things that they can't get something through Congress, then they'll run drugs or traffic humans or do all this nefarious, evil stuff, steal all this stuff so they can do what they like in the background and not even have to ask permission. So companies do the same thing. We can't let that play into things. Now, saying that, as humans, we should also do things that have multiple purposes. So if I'm planting something in the ground to grow some food, I also want that plant to make the soil better. And I also want that plant to shade the plants around it so they don't get burnt by the sun. And I also want that plant to help protect the other plants from the insects that are going to eat the other stuff. So we have to employ this multiple benefits, multiple returns. You don't just build a house to get a good night's sleep. It's to protect you from the weather. It's security, knowing it's there. It's also an investment because it's going to last. It's also enables you to have a family or have multiple groups of people all sharing a place. So just not every, like, I don't know what my point is there. It's one thing I found with, and I found this with when I did work as caretaker on a farm, looking at, like, dealing with weeds and invasive species and natural occurrences like flooding, washing things out. You have to work with the environment, but you also have to do these things. There's certain things that you have to do you have to manage it. But then when you see that we as humans are being managed, it hurts. And then you think, I don't want to have to actually do that. But if you don't do those certain things, then everything collapses, right? That's why, in a sense, there's these certain things in the world that are unjust. But the people say it has to be that way. I've heard this mantra over and over. Yeah, but it has to be that way. And that's their excuse. It's not, it's a bad excuse. It can be done better. It can always be done better and fairer and more just and better morals. My point with that is that my analogy of the plant and how you can use the plant to help this and the plant helps the soil, but it also helps the other plants, but also keeps the bugs away and all this sort of stuff and keep the moisture in and everything, and they work in syntropy, like in symbiosis or whatever, like they're helping each other. Everything's helping each other in cooperation. So that's the answer right there. It's taking things that can get flipped and go a bad way and making them for a good reason. So there generally isn't a bad result. So some people see weeds as this thing that destroys and they get rid of it and they use chemicals, but other people see them as this great thing that helps nurture the soil and prepare it for the next thing you're going to plant. So it's all about shifting perspective and learning how to do things, but also management too. We're being managed as humans, but we need to take that back. We need to manage ourselves, And someone told me this once. He goes, don't worry about mind control yourself. Yeah, that's a great thing. Don't worry about the control and the management that's coming from external, because it's coming from every direction: media, societal expectations, laws, and but we work within. If you're, generally humans have got moral compass, and they generally do develop it. I think it gets taken from us, and I think it was Amy made that point, is that we are born good, and then people's morality gets incrementally taken away. Like, for instance, some people might not start off greedy, but then they end up greedy, and then they regret that. So, saying that at the same time, we also need to have a certain amount of self-preservation. We need to protect our own things. If not, we lose everything, and it all gets taken from us. So we find that balance. I just love that we're all here and we have these conversations. So I've been a while away not reading the comments. Amy says, most loyal creature on the planet. I miss who we're talking about there, but I'm sure that was cool. LKW says, because I'm so far behind on the comments from reading them. LKW says, it's so corrupt globally. Yes, it is. Oh, 6 Cents Amelia's here. How you going, Amelia? She says, hello, Luke and chat room community. Awesome. I started the stream early tonight, thinking, I'm going to start trying to do it earlier. I might even do it start at 4 p.m. on Sunday, which might make it better moving forward. I'm going to try and start doing that, which will be good for you, not so late at night. MJG says, hi, Amelia. Amelia says, hello, MJG. Amy Suez says, I did a week from not using the internet. The best week of my life by far. My anxiety reduced. There you go. Digital detox is really great. And I think moving forward into the future, I think humans are going to go into that. So there's a lot of talk at the moment talking about the actual posting of people on social media. People are posting less. And this is not just a result of the anxiety that people have from overstimulation, from years and years of this internet, the way it has changed because of social media and the way that it was, I wouldn't say weaponized, but in a way you could almost say that, perverted or gone into a bad direction. People have got a fatigue from it, but the social media companies themselves have actually created that problem. YouTube themselves have just released a feature where you can create AI generated shorts just by typing something in on your phone. So what's that going to do to YouTube and the people's brains? I hold off. I want to start using the shorts and do 3-minute chat things. But the super short form content and the flippy thing, it's messing with people's brains. People's retention. I'm jumping around from topic to topic, but I can still talk like this, and you're still able to listen and understand what I'm talking about, because we all live in this world, so we're all experiencing the same stuff. But the things about these short form content, and so everyone copied each other, and so they try all these new things because they spend all this money on creating this thing. Oh, we've got to use it. So people are posting less. So what's it going to look like in 5 years? Is social media going to be this wasteland where no one's even on there, because you can't get on a social media platform and all you see is AI generated stuff? And what sort of sort of dissonance or schism is going to happen in people's minds where they can't believe what they see anymore. It's another quote, I think, by Brzezinski. There'll be come a point where people won't be able to believe anything. There'll be nothing that they can believe or see what they see anymore. And again, this is all by design, because not only it's not just greed, but it's also because they want that. Now, it's because they want us to stay in the cave. They want us to be trapped. But we are not, by nature, we are meant to progress. Even if we can't physically move, we can still flourish. If disabilities, I've got an impairment disability with my condition from the severe trauma, and it's affected my whole life. It's not stopping me from, it's very difficult. It takes me so long to get anything happening. I have to work hard to get anything happening, but I'm not giving up. And I go backwards and falter and stuff. I've had regression in my life, and I've had the negative effects of it. So I've internalized this trauma and directed, not having any form of justice or way of being able to express or grow. It becomes internalized. And this is something humans, we all share. But also, you just look at the determination of people with disabilities and impairments and conditions, medical, whatever it is, and see when they don't give up, and they don't give up on humanity. They don't stop being careful and kind to other people. And we can learn from that. Remember that we keep ourselves going. So Amy says, if you're not beautiful, you don't fit in. So cruel. Yeah. Societal expectations on that. And again, it's even made worse with the whole AI thing, because, they're creating these artificially geometrically perfect images of people. And it's just wrong, because it's reinforcing, and it's pushing that, we're all different. I had to learn to love myself, grow. As a teenager, I grew man boobs, and I had to learn to not care. Now, it was 2022 was the first time I went swimming without a shirt on since I was 10 or 11 years old. And I worked so hard to lose weight and work and build up my strength, so that I didn't care, and also my confidence. And I haven't been able to do it since. And obviously, I went through a crisis a year later and then put on a lot of weight. But, I'll get back to that one day. But it bothers me, but it doesn't bother me. And look, I've got a fiance. It doesn't bother her. I love that. I'm very fortunate, but it still hurts. And those societal expectations and the way that we get treated for being different is just horrible. But yeah, I used to go in high school. People used to come up to me and grab me all the time for early high school for several years, till they finally stopped doing it a little bit later. So, but that's just one thing. I've talked about the being made fun of for being bald, because I believe it was cortisol or adrenal fatigue and high stress that caused me to become bald maybe 10 years early, maybe 20 years early. No, about maybe 10, 15 years early. It just, body just was like, nah, you've been stressed, mate, your whole life. I literally have a body type shape which is adrenal fatigue shape. So my body has been shaped from the stress hormones that have been continuously expressed. In addition to the body shape, I also have the effect on my organs and my brain and my nervous system. My whole body's affected by it. So when people say, oh, trauma is just like something, it's nothing. No, it's physical. It's almost all physical. There's ways of letting it go. Sometimes it's stored more in the brain. Sometimes it's stored more in the body. It depends on what the trauma comes from, how it was received, and how it was encoded, whether it was encoded in the long-term memory or in the short-term memory, or it was encoded in the physical body itself. And so that depends on what it was. And that's the thing. We all have suffered different trauma. But the effect of it is very real, and it has very real effects. So the medical industry is probably happy to have people highly traumatized because they've then got medical treatments to then make money off giving them. Highly traumatized individuals are also easier to control, and they're also generally easier to predict. So it's a big part of the world wanting people to be in that state, because it's easier for them to keep this thing going the way it is. But if the world was more just, open, fair, and honest, loving, caring, we wouldn't have to worry about any of that stuff. Sixth Sense Amelia says the internet has also exposed all of these things too. These people existed before the internet. We're just obvious to it. Yeah, that's it. I like that comment. Like it is. It's there has been this revelation of the method, and that we are more aware of these things now. It is this amazing tool. The internet is this amazing tool. While we have it, we should use it for good and to its best ability. And we should be cautious of things, of these things that we're given. How I'm so appreciative of this platform, being able to do this, what this has meant for me. I started making videos like several years ago. I think I made my first one like 10 years ago, and then did nothing for years, and then started up again. And then at the live streams, I was in a super lonely, isolated, and it was the best thing in the world for me. For some reason, I thought, why don't I just do a live stream and see if there's going to be some people there to chat to? And it turned out to be the best thing, and it changed my life. I even found my fiance that way. We met here. So using things for, isn't this a great way of social media? It's a little bit, I've said this a few times, I feel like, I'm the only one here on the screen chatting. You all have to listen to me. So I feel a little bit like I'm in the center of attention, but I'm trying to keep it so that I'm giving attention to everyone, so that we all feel like we're here together. And I appreciate that everyone is so loving and respectful. So Amy says, brew as a cup of tea in UK. That's it. There you go. Yeah, it's a little bit early for a brew. a different brew. This is a beer brew. But yes, I've been drinking a lot of tea lately. I haven't for a little while, but I had a coffee today. Excuse me, and it was the first coffee I had in like weeks. But I've enjoyed drinking, getting back to drinking tea. MJG says, oh no, Amy says, yeah, morning here, ha. MJG says, great, Luke, awesome. So that's good. I appreciate that, MJG. I'm glad. LKW says, I'm on tank water, thankfully. There you go with the praying hands. So there you go. Like you can look after your own water that way. And that's a big thing. With these data centers, like they'll start taking groundwater, they'll start changing local laws because they'll pay off local governments because they're getting so much money. It's already happening, and they just buy up houses quietly. It's all being done quietly. So there's people investigating these things. It's very hard to investigate these sorts of things. They have to be detectives, basically, looking to see what's happening, researching property sales and development applications and things like that. And of course, these sorts of things don't go through the same approval processes that other things do. They just get the classic rubber stamp of approval. No worries, you can come through here. Oh, no, get out of here. But you want to grow some food, some good clean food, and sell it at a fair price? No way, mate. Oh, no, we want to put some power lines for some wind turbines and some solar panels, which is great, but just not here, not right where we're trying to grow food. Oh yeah, but we also want to put in a data center here as well, right here, and we're going to take all your water. Doesn't matter how long you've been here. Doesn't matter what purpose you're doing in a positive. No. So we have to look at what's the cost benefit analysis of things, and these things don't happen. There was a recent press conference by our government, which is essentially meant to be for the people. Now, my ancestors actually helped found this political party at its inception. They were part of the whole starting of it. And if they knew what it was doing today, they would just be disgusted because they're against the people. And it's frustrating. But yes, they were basically gaslighting and the people and not answering questions in a typical politician way. Here's another thing: this rhetoric and these speech patterns that these weaponized communication by politicians to divert and not answer questions and to gaslight people and to trick people, like to literally break people's brains with their words and push them down and to demonize people at the same time. When we see this all the time, where they misrepresent and demonize people who have got legitimate concerns about things, and they demonize them, and they also at the same time lie about things, and they won't answer questions, what will that do to the species of humans moving forward? Are humans going to continually adopt these speech patterns of avoidance of answering questions and being truthful and honest? What's that going to do in 50 or 100 years? Because until we had radio, then television, then the internet, and then 24-hour, so in between the internet, that we had the 24-hour news cycle, then the internet. Now we have 24-hour world news that only the people who care will know. All the older people on the legacy, they don't want to know what's on the internet, right? They only want to see what their television news at 6 p.m. at night time while they're having dinner tells them, and they'll get their daily fix of lies and fear-based reactions and reactionary content, and confirmation bias. So in a lot of ways, it's really been orchestrated to a point where it's very damaging, not only for the world that we currently live in, but also the world in the future. Because what are the next generation, what are they going to be talking like? Are they going to respond to everything with a non-answer, just like a politician does? Because they've been conditioned. It's like they've learned it. So you go back 50 years or 100 years, the only way you'd find out about things would be a speech that was written in the newspaper, or like a press release, and we the history of press releases and public relations. And so, we're talking about Brene and Ivy League. All these things have got a long history, but they also only go back so far in this modern era with print media. And they had certain effects, right? And then it changed to the radio, to now the internet, and then 24 News, and then to the point where are people going to be speaking in this way in the future to each other? Are humans going to adopt these communication traits? And I believe that they already are and have. And I think I've seen it. And, so we see we see it. We see that there's a pathological avoidance, which is to always say no, or to not agree with anything, and to have tantrums and be angry about anything, not want to do anything that anyone else says. And I got a feeling that has sort of come from this greater thing, and it's filtered down because people see, and we are what we consume, like what we hear, so I often talk about just, if you're listening to me, if you agree with something, that's great. But even if you agree with me, like, think about what I'm saying, and think maybe I'm not right. I'm not. This is just my opinion about all this stuff. I generally speak from either first-hand experience, second-hand, or second or third-hand accounts, or by what I've experienced from what's come through from the media, which you can only trust to a certain amount. We can only take things to a certain. And now, when I was studying AI and cybernetics, robotics, and all that stuff a long time ago, deepfake stuff was invented by an Australian university, and they had the technology. I saw it like not 25 years ago, 15 years ago, over 15. No, it was like 17 years ago. And they were promoting what they could do, that they could in real time insert objects that you couldn't believe that aren't really there, using the current resolution cameras. So things but you know how they can do, it doesn't matter, they can easily lower the resolution and all that stuff. So that's how, but what I'm trying to say is that all this technology that's around today that makes things that make people not believe. So now we live in the world of AI, deepfake, all this stuff. This is why moving forward, real people are going to be more important, because you can always, and then it comes down to the carrier. So here's YouTube. It could be any service. So if it's being adulterated or affected, then you can check it. So things like watermarks within a file type can be a way to authenticate. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for people to know what's real and what's not. We're already seeing that when world events occur and people get on the internet and like type in a few prompts and put up some photos. Look, Facebook were doing it themselves. They were deliberately creating fake content and putting it out there until they got a backlash. Like, this is really dangerous stuff. No wonder people are rejecting these things. So I believe that moving forward, the internet's going to look very different in 5 years or 10 years. Hopefully it's going to still have the old notion of wanting to share quality information, right? And also we shine the light on the nefarious dark side of the internet, and that gets cleaned up, because some of the worst things that happen are actually being investigated by Interpol and major groups to stop it, but it doesn't stop it completely. And in a lot of cases, some of these things go on for 5-10 years before they actually finally catch people. And that's just certain things. So we need to look at ourselves as human beings and go, what are we going to focus our attention on? Now we have to know that this stuff exists, but we also have to know that there is a future that we can all share and have a great, prosperous time. So it's very difficult when we live in a world where things like warfare they want to keep warfare going and going because there's money behind it, and it's a game that's been going on, and there's grudges, like I was talking about earlier. There are grudges and blood debts that go back from. We're still living through. We're living at a time in this modern era where there are ancient empires that have been suppressed for hundreds and up to thousands of years that are wanting to crawl their way back. So there are these multiple levels of warfare going on, even though these groups are all still in cahoots at different levels. It's so convoluted, it doesn't make sense, and there's no reason for any of it, except for the fact that they can't let go of things. So letting go of these grudges is a good way to move forward. I think us as people who are learning to live and move on from trauma and to resolve the pain that has been inflicted on us and the effect that it's happened on our bodies and our minds and our lives, that the world can learn from what we're doing. So we have to be an example for them, not just for them, but also for ourselves, because we're too important to lose what we have. And people do care for us. We're all beautiful people. We have to remember that. So I love seeing the stuff, the love hearts and the 100% flying. It's awesome. It's awesome. See, I got my voice back. I couldn't speak for weeks. Hey, I got my voice back. Oh, I love it. How good is this? Where am I? I'm going to read some more comments. Six Sense says, yeah, I'm on tank and a spring fed as well. Okay. Oh, that's awesome. Good combo there. Six Sense Amelia, you got the best of both worlds. And you know, I know that I can't remember which island you're on, but like I know that rainfall varies a lot in New Zealand. Like there's not I think South Island doesn't get much rain compared to the north. Water is precious, you know, and quality water. So this is what I'm learning with permaculture is all these things are really, everything's important. The soil, the air, the water, access, community, so many things. And we can all learn from all this stuff. Six Sense Amelia says, I'm considering leaving the internet. I didn't have TV, social media, or even email since 2007. Then I got a phone with access to YouTube. Mental health plummeted in 2 years. That is heavy. That's a lot. And you can see that you saw the effect. You lived through it. And you know what? I'm so blessed that you have found this community. We've all found each other, and you're an amazing person, Amelia. And like, I remember when I first met you, and you had a couple of you wrote some comments and explained your situation to me, and I was like, oh, look, you've been through a lot, and I could tell that you're just a beautiful person, and that you know what, this social media can be good if we use it like this. So I'm glad that that this is our time together, all of us here. So I love that. And I moderate most of my, I get on Instagram and scroll, but I've learned to stop doing that now. And I still do it occasionally. Like, I could look at the, you can look at your time thing on your phone, and it tells you how much time you spend on apps. I literally only have a few apps on my phone. So that's how I get away from not having much. And but it shows. And yes, Amy says, so with you, Amelia. Yes, so other people agree that that's what it's like, isn't it? Get away from too much. It's overstimulation and isolation. These are torture techniques. That's like strapping someone into a chair and putting drops of water on them, or flashing lights or loud sounds or something like that. And that's what the internet with social media in the wrong way is. Even the 24-hour news cycle can be that. But the internet's even worse because, I guess it's like as if, what I'm saying, that they're comparable, but the non-linear, fluidic, two-way bidirectional way that the internet works like that, and specifically targeting. So, the difference between a television, it has to be broadcast, whereas, things can be target specific. So what we're seeing now with the use of AI is prices being changed on the fly, and actually data mined information on people is changing the way that they charge people to do things. So I'll give you an example. Say this data broker company knows that someone in your family has just passed away and you have to take a flight somewhere. They know you have to go there, and you go to buy your flight. They know the person died, by the way, because of AI, then all information. And then you go buy the ticket, and they double the price just so they can price gouge and make more money off you. We also have on shopping supermarket stores, while they're charging the food prices up and up and up and up, they're putting electronic food prices, so screens on the food things that are changing. So you go to pick something up off the shelf and it's $5.50, and you go to put it in your shopping trolley and it's now $6.50. You go to pay for it at the checkout and now it's $7.50. What sort of world are we living in when it's like that? Like, this is greed. This is completely unchecked greed. People want to complain about consumerism or capitalism. Call out the worst parts, not someone who mows lawns to make a bit of money to put fuel in their car, to pay to or to put food on the table for their children or something. What about the companies that are doing that sort of stuff? And so many people are not even aware that this stuff's happening. It's becoming a thing. So it's like, literally, we can resist against this by becoming more resilient, more self-sufficient, and more caring and sharing. Because when we do that, they lose money on what they're trying to do. But this changing the price on products willy-nilly should be illegal. It should be that if you're a company, especially a company over a certain size, any company, it should be illegal if you have to have an advertised price on a product in a store, and that's what it is. What's the point of even looking up a price online, working out what your weekly groceries are going to be? Then you go to the shops and you're like, that was an extra $50. I can't work it out. Like I spent an hour working out how much this is all going to cost. And it's all because they've fluctuated the prices. So it should be that. So people argue against regulation. I think regulation is essential, and it should be that we regulate the regulation. You know, we the people, we the humans, we the folk. Not they getting to dictate to us and then holding us to ransom. These things can be really upsetting, but there's always ways around this stuff. Now, for most of these things, like low level infringements with laws and fines, none of that stuff, or increases in prices, or levies or taxes. Well, rich people don't pay taxes; they find loopholes and ways not to do it. But generally, they don't care about these increases in prices because they've got so much money, it's not going to change their living standards. But everyone else has to deal with this stuff. So it's bad enough that governments are continually raising taxes and not big business isn't paying tax. So the only way the government can get money is to tax the lowest earning people as much as they can, even though they say, oh, but you don't have to pay tax. No. Everyone's paying tax on everything, and often compounded over and over. People who've got lots of money, that doesn't affect them. But people who don't have a lot of money, that is the difference between eating a meal and not eating a meal, or buying a new pair of shoes, or getting their car serviced, or going on a holiday, or getting their teeth fixed, or going and seeing their grandma or granddad or whatever, because they can't afford it, if they're lucky enough to have family. So this injustice in the world we can't let it get us down. We got to do what we can to make everything as awesome as we can. Like turn these difficult situations into learning experiences, but there are things that are going to affect us and going to really hurt us. But things that we can manage, we should work out ways. Do what we can. So Amelia says, I'm getting tired now, starting to doze off. Good night, Luke and friends. Wonderful to see you all. Thanks for being here, Amelia. You're probably already asleep by now because I've been talking for so long. But yes, like I said, I'm going to start streaming earlier on a Sunday. So it's sort of better for everyone. I might start at like 3 in the afternoon, 3 or 4 instead of I used to stream from 6 p.m. Australian time. I'll start earlier. So I look forward to next time we can catch up. Amy Suez says, yeah, encouraging growth in others. Exactly. I love that. And she continues, the older generation believe those YouTube shorts. Yeah, true. Well, that's the thing. There's so much of this when they like a big thing in the rhetoric of this whole misinformation, disinformation is a classic subterfuge or distraction from the what's really going on and what is the real misinformation and disinformation. And this is stuff that is not necessarily political. It's more just general sort of persuasion and coercion and gently nudging people into a certain direction. And it's also, if you look at this thing as a greater whole, it's like it's like ticking off enough things to have someone misled. And there's we have to be resistant against that, and we have to call those things out. So you know, the social media groups have backlash. When they get backlash about AI generated slop or misinformation from AI generated stuff and scams, they do. And this has been happening only in recent times, because that only happens when it gets to a point where people backlash and then they go, oh, sorry, and then they pull back. But then they let it happen again. So like, we have to keep calling it out. But what we did see is we did see a reduction in some of these. It does have an overall good effect. The hinge that squeaks gets the grease, sort of thing. Like if we don't make noise, they're not going to do anything about it. They're just going to keep pushing. And luckily, we are seeing some things fall away. But there's always new scams. There's always new things, tricks, and manipulation that's coming through. So it's like we have to just be on. It should be also good for us to have a place for a bit of entertainment. To scroll through and see some like Instagram or YouTube or whatever, where it's like, oh, I just want 5 minutes to just see what. Yeah, because there is fun, interesting content people are making. Growing stuff, cooking things, making things. Fixing things, teaching you how to stuff, talking about philosophy. Helping people heal and all that sort of stuff. So we should celebrate the things that are good, and we should also not let the other things, control us. So. Amy says, remember the excitement of waiting for our photos to develop the real you? Yes, absolutely, totally. I do remember that. I remember I remember like when I was like late teens, and like I did a bit of graffiti for a while. Not like damage, not like destructive stuff, like like artistic stuff, and away from like under bridges and away from things. So it wasn't destroying property or anything. But I would take photos of it with my classic camera, and I'd take them in. And I remember having a roll of film just disappear when I went to get it developed, and I was all paranoid that they sent it to the police and all that. But it's not like I was doing anything really wrong. Like I wasn't vandalizing or anything like that. But it was just funny. And it's good that they do that because, you know, if people are committing crimes, they should have mandatory reporting, which is obvious with stuff. But that, I remember when that happened, that just reminded me of that. And I was just like, oh no. But then I was like, wait, hold on a second. There's nothing, I didn't really do much wrong. Like, there's no real crime that I committed. So, but I thought it was funny anyway. And, but yes, that was great. I used to love that. And you spent the money on it and you waited, like you had the 1 hour or 2 hour, whatever photo places, and you drop it off and you come back and they'd be all excited that you got your photos. And the funny thing is, when you picked up your photos, like you knew that the person at the photo booth had like seen every photo come through. So they knew what you'd been doing and stuff like that. And I was like, oh yeah, it was fine. But it's just funny that sharing thing, long before the internet, long before like you upload something to like Instagram, and like before it even gets shared to your friends, it goes to some other places and stuff like that. So those sorts of things already existed, you know. So, but they were, it had the meaning behind things when you did that. So I recently just got a new camera to help me with my mindfulness stuff and nature therapy and stuff. So, you know, I would like to get one of those little printers so I could print out the photos, just because it's great to have real prints of your photos. So, but that was an era that's, you know, it's still around. People are still using film, but like, it was an era. Amy says, my fella went bald for the same reason. So there you go. Well, there you go. Say good day and say you got a brother on the other side of the world who knows what it's like. Lost all their stress. It does it. It just happened like that. Like, you know, yeah. It started like, yeah, started thinning and then just gone in about a year. Like, well, not fully gone. Like, it had gone to like just remnants, and then I let it be all messy for ages until I finally started shaving. So, but there you go. It's good to know that I'm not alone, and it's sad that I have to. It's sad that we have to have that thing have happened to us. But you know what? Well, I'm happy being bald. I like it now. I embraced it a long time ago. I love it. The only thing is if you don't shave often enough, then it becomes more work. So the trick is to shave more often. So MJG says, love to listen. Oh, awesome. Much love, MJG. And Amy says, us humans will have to learn to code to have a convo. Yeah, there you go. There will be that, I think, in the future. Like there is a fear that there could be a more of a like a gatekeeping on the ability to even access the internet unless you have certain AI generated code and they might even lock human generated code away. There was a recent interview with the owner of OpenAI, and he was talking about all the people that, you know, going to lose their jobs, and he seemed very concerned about it all. Like, he's opened the gateway to hell and all this sort of stuff. Like, he's realizing the ramifications, but then he's trying to put a positive spin on it. Say, you know, coders are going to still have their job, but, you know, because you're still going to need to have some. And it's like, yes, and then also the response from a lot of people who are already using AI to do complex coding are saying, look, it's not what they're saying. Like, you can get AI to make this complicated code, but then you actually spend double the amount of time bug error fixing, and then you might have to rewrite half the stuff anyway because it just doesn't work. So it will work for some things, but then other things it just won't work. And that's what we have to realize. It's not a fix-all thing. And so we're in the era of stuff around and see what happens, you know. So we will learn to go back to simple. And there's more meaning in simple. Simple is not a bad thing. Simple is elegance. Simple is beauty. You know? So wow, it's been over 3 hours. Just over 3 hours. It's been so good tonight to be able to just chat about this stuff, you know. I do appreciate that there is this platform, you know, and that we are able to have these conversations and that we're given this. But you know what, we do understand we have to watch ads, you know, unless you're paying for it, paying for YouTube, you got to watch ads and things like that. I'm not monetized. This channel will never be monetized. I am starting other channels for podcasts and stuff, and I'm considering what to do with that. But I want to share the stuff, you know, like my mindfulness channel will be promotion for my business. So if people see, if I can show people and teach people some stuff, maybe they will want to do a one-on-one session, or come if they live near me. Maybe I can do nature therapy and go watch bushwalking and watch the sunset or something. That's how I want to monetize my putting stuff on the internet. I want to be very open about how I do things like that, and that's why this channel will never be monetized. What it will mean that, you know, it won't get the same promotion that a monetized channel will be, or someone who wants to become monetized, because the, you know, the algorithm will sort of, you know, push people towards those directions. But that, you know what, YouTube has also got this egalitarian fairness thing where they do allow you to upload a video and it will appear, and if it's good, then people will be able to watch it. So they do promote things and push things, but they also allow everyone. They really do allow everyone to get on there, as long as they follow the terms and guidelines and things like that. You know, it is there for us all. We do have to watch ads, you know, if we're not paying for it. This is but you know, I appreciate that we're able to have this community, and I appreciate you all, and I love these conversations we have. So I appreciate so much. Just being able to talk again, feeling better again. I still, like last night, every night I'm still having difficulties. Like I was up and down, I think from around midnight. I had to have several baths, like just not full baths, but just like enough water to not be cold. And then until the pain, because this infection caused a lot of body pain, muscle pain and joint pain, as well as headaches and fever. It's horrible. Look after your ears, everyone, because that's where, like, ears are where infections get into the body. Most infections go in through the ears. So there's lots of ways. Look into how you can keep your ears clean and to keep your ears hygienic and all that sort of stuff. Like, I live in a pretty hygienic place. Like, my room's not really dirty or anything. I do dig in the dirt, but I don't get covered in it. I used to work doing gardening and get covered in dirt all day long, and I didn't really get the ear infections. I used to go swimming in the reservoir and get the murky water in my ears, not worry about it. But you have to be careful about those things and look into ways to keep your ears healthy, you know. So not doing the wrong thing. So like I was using those cotton tip things, bad. That's where the infection came from, and probably spread. I might have gone like this. Usually I only use one for one ear and I use another one for the other ear. Could have been that. but also aggravating it. Should never put those things in your ears. And watch what things you put in your ears as far as liquids and stuff. Like I was using nasal, like a nasal throat spray, thinking, oh yeah, that's great, put it in your ears, and it would clean out my ears. But the doctor said, no, that's not good because it leaves a residue, which then creates a problem. He said, you better off using just like a saline solution. So like you can make your own with good quality salt and water, clean water, or you could buy that stuff. So look into all these ways, and it's good. It's really good for your health. You do those things and you'll probably get less colds and flus, in your life, and other infections, just ear infections, which can be really bad. I learned a lot in this process, and I'm really appreciative to be feeling better now. So I might end the stream here just because I have been chatting for so long, and it's probably good for me to take a rest. I am still healing, and I really appreciate everyone tonight. Giving, like, we all had a chance to chat, and I also had a chance to just chat about stuff. So you all gave me the opportunity to sit here and just talk about the world, and how good is that these are things that we should appreciate. I'd love for the opportunity to give other people a chance like that. So moving forward in the future, I'd like to set up some way of doing interviews. I am going to start doing interviews with people, and I've talked to several people, that members of this community, to talk about their trauma, how they've overcome parts of their trauma, what they do to become more resilient, so they can share their story in a constructive and empowering way. So that's something that is going to be starting in the next few months, and I really look forward to that. So reach out to me, anyone here, even if you don't come to the chat much, but if you've been watching my videos and you're like, oh, I'd love to share with this community what I do and what I've experienced, send me an email. My email's on my bio page there on my YouTube, and you can say, yeah, I'd be keen to chat about stuff. And yeah, I'll be getting around to be doing that in the next few months. I'll be starting that, and then you'll be able to see those interviews, hear those interviews, and share them with people if you think that there's people that can benefit from it, because there will be. Because I already know from hearing everyone's stories that they've shared here that everyone has knowledge and skills they've learned from dealing with overcoming trauma. So, that's going to be a really great thing to sort of achieve by the end of the year, because I've been talking about doing this since late last year. I started talking about doing this, and I had so much going on. So this year is going to be before the end of the year, I'll have at least a couple of interviews up, and it doesn't have. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait. So I appreciate. So I love the fact that people who are here in this community, if you want to really have the chance to share your story and your methods, then we're here, and we want to hear. So much love to everyone. I hope you all have a great week. And there's going to be, I'll be busy working on my small business this week. And but there might be some videos from down at the garden, working on planting some more stuff. And maybe some nature videos. There's some awesome stuff of the bees and the birds down at the garden. So I want to get some footage of that and make a nice little video, like a calming, relaxing video of just the birds and the bees, like all pollinating the flowers and things like that. I think that's just going to be great. So that's what I want to try and achieve this week. So anyway, much love. Everyone have an awesome week, and I look forward to catching up again soon.